All right, good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We came out of an executive session and everyone needed some hot coffee since it feels a little chillier in here to most people, but not me. Welcome to our council study session for April 4th, 2023. I will call this meeting to order. We just have one item on our agenda this evening, and that's a presentation and discussion of the Community Engagement Task Force focus areas related to mental health and suicide prevention. I believe Melanie Dykstra will be introducing this item. Good evening.
Mayor, council members, thanks for having us this evening. My name is Melanie Dykstra. I'm with the Town Manager's Office. I'm the Volunteer and Community Resources Manager, but I am here on behalf of the Community Engagement Task Force as the staff liaison. So I'm going to just kick off this presentation, and then we do have some members of our task force here, and one of our members will be taking a piece of the presentation as well. So I do want to just kind of recapture kind of where we've been and where we're going. But spring of 2021, the town council did direct staff to create a community engagement task force. In January, the council did appoint our 9 members and 2 alternates. We kicked off March of 2022 with our first meeting. And then in November, we did all come to you at the council retreat in order to kind of get some feedback of how, as we finish a topic area, we should bring it to council. And that's actually what today is we are bringing our report out of our first topic area. So again, the council prioritized areas of focus that were selected by council were the task force to look at domestic violence, ensuring Gilbert is a kind, welcoming, and inclusive community, homelessness and low-income challenges, human and sex trafficking, and mental health and suicide prevention. Again, they went through a pretty long journey of getting some board member training, making sure they had education on issues so that they could select their first focus area. And what they did come up with is the first one after they did a survey and looked at all the data, education, and information that they had, they did hone in on the mental health and suicide prevention as their first focus area. I'd also like to acknowledge Kathleen Dowler, who is actually here as well. She's with Dignity Health, and she helped our task force as a facilitator to help bring us to these recommendations and work through a lot of the information that they had absorbed and were able to talk about. So we really want to thank her time and effort that she put into the task force to get us to where we are today. So as you'll be hearing from the recommendations, one of the overarching objectives that they did have and some of the things they wanted to make sure we're focused on is really promoting awareness of existing resources. They also wanted to promote positivity around mental health. We've heard there's a lot of stigma on that. Also holistic support of mental health, and that was looking at different ways to provide support through mental health services, with the goal being increased awareness and use of available resources and less stigma about mental health. So all the recommendations you're going to hear tonight kind of are the 3 key areas they're looking at is the awareness, making sure it's positive, as well as holistic. But we also wanted to make sure that you are aware of some of the recommendation considerations that are still in mind, that these all do have a time frame. So everything you see here is not going to happen overnight. They've all been qualified as either short-term, mid-term, long-term. And short-term for them is between 0 and 12 months. Mid-term time frame is 1 to 2 years, and long-term is 2 to 5. We know these things cannot necessarily happen overnight. Not everything can get kicked off like that. We also recognize that there will be some resources that may have to be allocated to some of these recommendations. But we also know this is not something that the town needs to necessarily do all by ourselves. This is an opportunity to have collaboration with outside partners, other people to take the lead. We might be support on that. It's not all staff-driven or town-driven. That these are the ideas that they are bringing forward as to how we can definitely work with our community as a whole. The other thing, and it didn't, as part of your packet, you did get some information on comparative recommendations. And we wanted to make sure that as we went through their priority recommendations, we kind of compared it to our 2019 needs assessment. And were items still valid? Were we matching? Do things still relevant? We also compared it to the ad hoc committee on teen mental health that was just done through the House of Representatives. And you do find there's a lot of comparative, there's a lot of the same issues, gaps, needs that are still out there that need to be resolved or worked upon. And so we found that this was a great tie-in to make sure that we were on the right track and that these recommendations were relevant today. So with that, I am going to introduce our presenter, Amy Holstein, who is part of our task force, to take the next section.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm Amy Holstein. My whole background is about 19 years in mental health, behavioral health, social services, child welfare. And so this is very important, near and dear to my heart, and it's a big load that we as a town and our community as a whole is taking on. So thank you for inviting us to be a part of it and to speak to it. Our services really our recommendations really revolve around services, having an awareness campaign, and access to information. We've been given a lot of information in this past almost year going through the needs, and it's really helped to understand what are we currently doing, like Melanie already spoke to, and where can we go from here. And that's going to revolve around our services, our awareness, and the access to that information. The objectives that we kind of kept going back to through the information that we were getting is really about 24/7 access. Emergencies don't happen from 9 to 5. We all know that. There's medical emergencies that happen all the time. That's why we have ERs. How do we help with mental health and get those services in place for people? Alternative therapies really speak to, we meet people where they're at. How do we support them with their beliefs? How do we support them with the type of treatment they need? And how do we reach everyone regardless of their age? The biggest thing that we really found was the awareness, and we do that through education and sharing information. The more we know, the better we can do. If we talk about it, we can make it a norm, like Melanie also spoke to. And creating those wraparound services for people, how do we support them, get them everything that they need so that they can be productive members in our community? So with the services that we talked about, we already learned that Gilbert's already doing a lot. And so how do we really understand, support, and partner with other programs so that we can continue to do better? We don't need to continue to reinvent the wheel and duplicate our efforts. How do we keep growing on top of a healthy foundation that's already being built? We're going to do that through professional navigation services. How are we going to support people with getting the right access to the right supports? If you think about somebody who is experiencing homelessness, they are also experiencing use with substances, and they're having, have a good night, everybody. Did that come up? So how are we going to help them? You have someone who's experiencing homelessness, substance use, and they're also having thoughts of wanting to kill themselves. What's the priority? Who's going to know how to support that? Who's going to know where to get them to? And so we need to be able to have those supports and be able to ready and available to answer those things as they come up. The button. Thank you. And then being through our trauma-informed services, let's be a trauma-informed community. So that's going to be offering mental health first aid to the community and supporting them. It looks and feels different to every person. How we support someone who's experienced trauma is going to feel different. How we approach them and serve them is going to be different as well. How does our librarian know how to help somebody who has a mental health illness? Is someone who's a danger to themselves or someone else? One of the things that I really thought about is not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, I was at an event and there was a gentleman. I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and he was doing the Heimlich maneuver on somebody. Very quick, very silent, very fast, quick to react. How do we have our community do that? How do we partner with our community so that we can respond as quickly to a medical emergency to a mental health? We have to be able to understand, identify symptoms of trauma, reaching people, again, how they need to be reached. Through our outreach and our advocacy center, these are also going to be ways that we can reach our community. We can have hubs. How do we train our community to be the boots on the ground resources? How can they reach our most vulnerable population to let them know, here's an advocacy center, here's how you get the resources you need, here's how we're going to get to where we need to go to make sure that you're successful, safe, and again, a productive member of our community. We also noticed that in a lot of the trends, there's alternative therapies and different ways that we can use our mental health providers to make a greater reach within our community. So it may not just be traditional talk therapy. It very much so could be creative expression. It could be through animal therapy. So again, how do we meet people where they need to be met? And as we went through all of our information and we kept getting everything, we kept really coming back to our biggest point throughout our discovery and discussion was really understanding the importance of awareness and having access to information. Again, we cannot do better if we don't know better. So my favorite thing that we really did come up with, and we spoke to it a lot, was creating a Gilbert Good Business designation. If we have all organizations who are on board and we're partnering with other people, people know where to go to get the help. I can walk into a business if I'm feeling unwell and I can say I need help, I don't feel safe, and they could say no problem, let's get you to where you need to go without any stigma, without any feelings of something's wrong with me. They could get me to where I need to go. And we do that through awareness. And another great thing about that would be the Mental Health Mondays was something we created. So Mondays we talk about what's mental health, what does that look like, what does that feel like for everybody else. And then making sure that we have access to the information. Everything should be easily accessible and available. That's going to be achieved through having readily available resource cards for those 24-hour services. And we market information, having resource fairs. So again, sharing the information with our community. If things are advertised widely and information is shared through publications, then we can really make sure that something happens that triggers a memory and we can make sure everyone gets to where they need to go for their mental health and safety.
Okay, just to wrap it up, we've talked before too that when we put these into place, we don't want to just be checking a box. We're wondering, how are we going to move the needle? Well, how does this actually become a successful endeavor? And so we do recognize that we still need some benchmark data. There's not a lot of baseline on different things. So we do need that needs to be established for each of these recommendations. As well as actually, and we started doing that with the group to make sure that they each become a SMART goal as well. And Kathleen talked a lot about that to us as well, to make sure that, you know, they have to be specific, so really defining them, making sure that there is a measurable opportunity. We do recognize that we feel like these were all attainable. This is something we already went through. These are attainable goals. They are realistic, and we can set a time frame. So the group has already done that with each of these recommendations. Now we just have to get a little bit more into the measurable opportunities, which we recognize can be some pre-survey, some post-survey information, and understanding that we have some benchmarks to go along with it. So that's something that's important, to make sure that we do recognize that these are recommendations that do make a difference. So with that, we're actually here to make sure that we get your feedback and understanding, because we will be moving on to our next topic and want to make sure that this is the kind of information that you're looking for from this group to bring back to you. So we would like to just open it up for any of your feedback on this information. And I don't know if Vice Mayor Tilke wants to chime in on anything that we may have missed.
Thank you, Melanie. Vice Mayor, would you like to add anything since you are the liaison to this group?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to thank the group. They've been together for over a year now, and this is the first time that we're really able to present some of their recommendations. We wanted to give you a high level look at what we were talking about. I know there's more details to come out of that, but today we were really hoping that if there's some specifics that we're not sharing today that you think will be important, that we do that. If you need us to dig deeper into any of those topics because you want additional information, that's the kind of feedback we're looking for right now. I think the other thing, you know, they took the biggest topic first, and the reason for that was the group, and we had long conversations about it, understanding that a lot of the other issues that we're going to be tackling, the root of that comes from some type of mental health issue. And so I believe some of the recommendations that you see today are going to be similar. We're going to be able to tag team that with the other topics that we're talking about. And I'll go in the weeds just a little bit because I'm getting really jazzed about the Mental Health Monday. You know, if we're able to create very short PSAs that have very powerful message, we can then share that through the faith community for that week, through your businesses, through all your organizations, so that we would have some really powerful, consistent messaging that goes out that pushes people to the resources that we'll have available. And so that's really what we want to do, is by eliminating that stigma around mental health. You know, it's as simple as, you know, you may be feeling this way, or you know somebody who's feeling this way today. If that's the case, we have resources for you, and this is how you can get a hold of them. And so that's the type of programming we're looking at. But we do need more feedback from you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any comments, questions?
I don't actually have any questions, but I think you girls and staff have done a terrific job, and the residents that have been involved in this program. And the biggest thing that I see is educating and putting this out where everyone knows, not just maybe the people that need the mental health, but people that, their families and different people, so that if they see that, they can help them as well. And, but I don't think I can add to much of anything you guys have done. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments, questions?
Mayor?
Yes, a voice from above. Councilmember Anderson, I almost forgot you were there. Sorry. Yes, sir.
No problem. Very quickly, again, thank you. Just as Vice Mayor said, thank you for all your efforts in the community. I think you chose the right topic to start with, and it looks like we're really on track with something that will make a difference in the community. One thing that I was interested in is there are some communities in the country that are trying to replace the police with professionals in these areas that you were presenting tonight, and I'm glad to see that we're including training with the police, that they are the first responders, and they should be able to respond and not give up that position to a mental health professional that probably isn't going to be there right away. So I'm glad to see that. And again, I think you're right on track. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Councilmember Anderson. We appreciate those comments. I think you're right on track too, and especially with mental health, like has been stated, everything that we see happening around us is really related to mental health. Our homelessness situation, our drug situation, I think even your next topic, human and sex trafficking, I think it's all connected, and I think that you're really off to a great start. How long do you think you'll focus on this one area before you move on to your next? Because I know you've already noted that your next one will be human and sex trafficking. So I want to make sure that you don't bite off more than you can chew. Are we going to focus on one area for a while and just start talking about the next area? That would be my question.
Thank you, Mayor, for the question. Right now, we are actually having the group move to the next topic area. So as we continue to keep in mind all of the information and the recommendations that they have, we did actually have a meeting last night, and they actually had presentations on human and sex trafficking from 3 different organizations. Our Gilbert PD, we had Star Bright there, as well as CC's Hope Center, so that they started getting the information. So they're going to actually start working in that area, because I think, as Vice Mayor Tilkley indicated, we think there's going to be some overlap. And so kind of going through these to see, where we need the overlap, where it can dovetail, what efforts need to be similar as to how they touch each of these areas. So I think we're going to, and Vice Mayor Tilly can correct me if I'm wrong, but work through each of these, and some will not take as long as others based on the information we're receiving. We think we may, and again, thanks to Kathleen Dollar to set us up on kind of the process that we did, we'll be able to mimic that and take this, we hope, a little bit quicker through some of the rest of these topic areas. And then again, we'll bring this one back to you, and then we'll keep building on that as we go.
Great, thank you. How do you intend to work with other organizations and groups on the mental health portion of it? For instance, I know the current Gilbert leadership class, their project is focused on suicide prevention, which is mental health to me too. Any thoughts on that, Melanie?
Mayor, council members, yes, we actually brought that up during our meetings, trying to understand what else is going on out there, and knowing that that is a potential resource, how can we support that? What does that look like? Making sure everyone's aware of that, and making sure it's getting out in our circles. We have organization, as you know, of For Our Town, who wants to potentially be an action arm and move some things forward on our behalf as well. So making sure there's different groups and we can continue to educate through our different avenues, that we can keep moving those things forward. Again, Dignity Health is working on a zero suicide initiative that came to our attention. We're sharing that out in all of our avenues and channels to make sure there's attendance, participation. So anything we hear of, especially that's still related to that, and we talk about moving that forward, is to make sure that we keep that information moving out into the community.
That's great. Kathleen, thank you for everything that you're doing to assist this group. I haven't seen you in a couple years, I don't think, so very nice to see you. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you to the members of the committee that are here this evening also. Thank you for your presentation. You did a lovely job. I know it's not easy standing up at that podium. And Melanie, thank you for being the liaison to this group. And I think this is an important position for you to hold with this group, considering what you do within the community and being the liaison to For Our Town, because I think we really could work together between those two organizations. Especially Vice Mayor came out and ran our planning session for our town, so I think she probably saw a lot of correlation there also, so thank you for all of that. Any other comments or questions for anyone? Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Think you're doing a great job and in the right direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will go ahead, and we're done a little early, so we have a few extra minutes. I will go ahead and adjourn the study session and see everybody back here at 6:30. Thank you.